You could make an argument that Mike Perry has had one of the best career turnarounds in MMA. His reckless fighting style and loudmouth persona has helped turn BKFC into one of combat sports' biggest franchises. A far cry from his days as a journeyman UFC fighter, more known for his scandals outside the cage. Today, we look at Perry's ill-fated tenure in the Octagon, and whether his downfall was due to a lack of talent or simply self-inflicted. Welcome to the INC, and this is the UFC career of Mike Perry. The UFC not only made Mike Perry, but also arguably saved him. Perry's upbringing was volatile to say the least. Born in Flint, Michigan, Perry and his family relocated several times before settling in Florida following his parents' divorce. By the age of 19, Perry was in the midst of a battle with drug abuse and had recently served a 6-month prison sentence for burglary. It was around that time when he started to work as a trainer at a UFC-branded gym in his native Orlando. In 2014, Perry donned the gloves himself and began competing in his first MMA events, and took to his new surroundings with a 7-fight winning streak, including 5 in the first round. After building a cult following in the local Florida scene, Perry was given a short-notice call to face Hyung-Gyu Lim at UFC 202, where the company newcomer made a notable, if comical, first impression. Perry backed up the bravado by finishing Lim in the first round, but his victory was overshadowed when cornerman Alex Nicholson was recorded making a racist remark about his opponent during the fight. Perry would earn a reputation for using similar slurs during his time with the promotion, something the fighter claimed was justified due to a DNA test suggesting he was 2% African. Perry followed the triumph with a win over Danny Roberts before suffering his first career loss to Alan Jouban, following months of trash talk which saw Perry actively goading the former model. The first 6 months came to encapsulate most of Perry's career, a fan-friendly brawler with the knockout power to neutralize opponents too aged or inexperienced to deal with it. But against savvier veteran competition, his head-first style meant opponents would often build huge striking leads before Perry would get out of first gear, something best demonstrated in a one-sided loss to Santiago Ponzinibbio. The in-cage action, however, would pay second fiddle to Perry's behavior outside the cage, as the fighter's active use of social media began painting an unpredictable, if at times trashy, persona. Perry's reality TV lifestyle came with its own supporting cast, including former tennis player and later girlfriend Danielle Nickerson. The so-called Platinum Princess proved why she was the perfect match for Perry's abrasiveness.
Knee kick! Kick that knee! Break that leg!
The supporting cast also came with its own share of villains. During his fast-tracking up the UFC ladder, Darren Till became embroiled in a war of words with Perry on social media. The wisecracking Brit was a perfect foil for Perry, but a rumored match between the two never materialized. Perry was also linked to matches with Colby Covington and UFC Hall of Famer Donald Cerrone, who cited Perry's arrival at Jackson Wink MMA as one of his reasons for leaving his longtime training camp. The new arrangement was set to get its first test against Yancy Medeiros at UFC 226, but when the Hawaiian withdrew from the bout citing an injury, Paul Felder, who was looking for an opponent after his own match with James Vick fell through, agreed to face the Platinum One on just 2 weeks' notice. The Jackson Wink move paid immediate dividends for Perry, showing a greater level of patience while constantly bludgeoning Felder with power shots. Felder fighting the second half of the match with a broken arm after suffering a fracture during a Perry slam attempt. While the win was arguably the biggest of Perry's career, its key purpose seemed to be highlighting the growing feud between himself and Cerrone, and the UFC capitalized by booking the two in the co-main event of Fight Night Denver. The Flames were fanned by Perry's social media activity leading up to the fight, including some highly insensitive promos.
I am the Platinum Warrior, and I am looking for this cowboy. I'm coming to Denver, and I'm gonna find you, cowboy, and I'm gonna take you dead or alive inside that octagon.
The Native Americans would ultimately be disappointed. Midway through the first round, Perry took Cerrone down with a body lock, only for Cowboy to reverse position and secure an armbar late in the first. Cerrone broke the record for most finishes in UFC history, while handing Perry his first stoppage loss. Things would be more positive for Perry outside the cage. In February 2019, Perry and girlfriend Danielle announced their engagement before marrying in a private ceremony later that year. The newfound monogamy fueled Perry for the best performance of his career when he faced in-form Vicente Luque in the co-main of Fight Night Uruguay. With both men known for their brawling style, the fight became an instant classic, with Luque's more precise strikes blending nicely with the brute power of Perry. The turning point of the match came late in the third round when Luque caught Perry with a jumping knee that broke his nose before locking in a guillotine, only for the Floridian to show unnatural resolve to reach the judges' scorecards. While Perry would lose the match by split decision, his spirited showing led some to wonder whether there was more to him than just an undercard attraction fighter. The goodwill ended just 4 months later when Perry defied doctors' orders to face Jeff Neal at UFC 245, where the lingering effects of the Luque fight were quickly evident.
Hands up steel! Jeff Neal with a quick knockout tonight!
Perry's goodwill took further hits over the next 12 months. In October of 2020, Danielle Nickerson announced that she and Perry had separated after a domestic abuse incident earlier in the year. Danielle's testimony, backed by her mother, claimed Perry had gotten into an altercation in a nightclub and took out his frustration by taking Danielle down and striking her with a barrage of punches, with Nickerson and her mother filing a restraining order against the fighter days later. Perry was involved in a further scandal when he was charged with assaulting an elderly man following a dispute at a restaurant, with Perry recorded using further racist remarks during the bust-up. Despite Perry having recently signed a new contract with the UFC, the first murmurings began over whether the fighter was worth the histrionics. By the time Perry returned to action against Mickey Gall, he was joined by new girlfriend Latori Gonzalez, who integrated herself into the Perry circus in unusual circumstances. Perry had been vocal about the impact the pandemic had had on his finances, claiming he couldn't afford a training camp for the fight and that Latori would be his sole cornerman against the CM Punk killer. Perry would claim the judge's nod in a largely utilitarian fight, even if Coach Latori's methods were less than constructive.
Hey, you look good, man.
You're doing good. You're doing great. I'm sorry to happen.
Coach Latori would leave her role shortly after, as Perry would have a full fight camp for his match with Tim Means at UFC 255. Perry's financial issues, however, were amplified at the weigh-in, where he was fined 30% of his fight purse after falling 4 pounds short of the welterweight limit. Means, who had replaced Robbie Lawler on short notice, made comfortable work of the depleted Perry, who appeared to have regressed from the man who pushed Vicente Luque all the way a year earlier. Perry's in-cage performances had always shielded his off-field drama. Now, he didn't even have that to fall back on. Having won just 2 of his past 6 fights, many saw Perry's bout with Daniel Rodriguez in April of 2021 as a must-win encounter for the Floridian, and Perry seemed to take the stakes to heart. Appearing noticeably leaner and with an intensity that had been lacking in his match with Means, Perry had further motivation away from the cage as he and girlfriend Latori announced the birth of their first child 3 months earlier. The Platinum Papa had seemingly turned a corner.
My son means the world to me and my family and my life, and just lit this fire that I didn't know was gonna happen. Now I have a reason to be a role model. I never really cared to be some type of role model before. You don't want to miss anything. You don't want to be like, man, I could have told you about that. I missed it. But who knows what's going to happen. He's only 3 months old, so sky's the limit.
While Perry made the right moves during media day, the same unfortunately couldn't be said about the fight. The limitations from the Means fight were evident again, as Perry appeared flat-footed and one-dimensional while D-Rod teed off on him for over 15 minutes. Rodriguez went on to claim a one-sided decision and condemn Perry to a 4th loss in his past 5. Shortly after the fight, the UFC made the decision not to renew Perry's contract, leaving with a 7-8 company record and 4 post-fight performance bonuses to show for it. While logic pointed towards joining Bellator or the PFL, Perry made the surprise decision to sign with BKFC, an upstart promotion founded by Pennsylvania boxing promoter David Feldman. Perry's mix of close-quarters aggression and trashy chicanery made him the perfect face for the promotion, including wins over MMA legends Eddie Alvarez and Luke Rockhold. Despite his achievements, Perry's reputation for fighting aged or undersized fighters led some to consider him the sports version of Jake Paul. Funny you say that, actually.
Now right hand, this may be it, right hand, and he's down for a third time!
Mike Perry's UFC run was memorable for reasons both good and bad. His method of fan-friendly violence and pre-fight histrionics made him a cult favorite early in his run, but his regressing skills and worsening image outside the cage turned him into something of a meme. For better or for worse, it's a testimony to Perry's cult of personality that he garnered so much attention despite having an ultimately mediocre record. A perfect mix of raw aggression, a reality TV persona, and the only 100% coaching record in UFC history. Eat your heart out, Khabib. This is the INC. Please like, share, and subscribe. Post your feedback in the comments and donate to our Patreon page for hours of exclusive content.